Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Pop Tarot Podcast. I'm your host, Janet Boyer, author of the books Back in Time Tarot, Tarot in Reverse, Naked Tarot, and the companion books to the Coffee Tarot deck and the Snowland deck. My partners in crime, Ron Boyer, the illustrator for the Coffee deck and the Snowland deck, and our son Noah, who is the tailor for our tarot bags for our Shea Boyer Etsy shop. They won't be joining me right now. I am on a different schedule a little bit than them. I'm a late nighter, and I thought I would do a podcast based on something that's just completely my interest and something that they probably don't know much about. And so I'm really excited because this episode is about 1970s TV show Wonder Woman. I was going to do a podcast on 70s nostalgia, girl power, and do like the Nancy Drew mysteries and Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman. But I'm like, no, they need their own podcast. Those three shows really impacted me as a young girl because I was born in 1970. And so this episode is going to be all about the 1970s TV show Wonder Woman and what tarot cards might correlate to the different aspects of Wonder Woman and the TV show itself. Now, interestingly, the initial pilot featured a blonde lady named Kathy Lee Crosby. If you guys were born in the 60s or 70s or even later, you might remember her. She was a co-host to that show, That's Incredible, with John Davidson and Fran Tarkenton, which I really like that too. It was kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not type of thing where they would do unusual, just weird stuff, scientific breakthroughs or people doing crazy feats and things like that. And I love that show too. But Kathy Lee Crosby was actually the initial Wonder Woman. Her outfit was lame and she wasn't that great. And she was blonde. I mean, come on. And so there was just one pilot. But then I guess the executives saw the potential for that because it was already a DC comic. And so then they were looking for an actress to play the new Wonder Woman, Diana Prince. And I guess, there was a lot of actresses who applied, including Joanna Cassidy and Jacqueline Smith. You might remember Jacqueline Smith from Charlie's Angels. I just had a brain fart there. Also a TV show. From the 1970s. But a 23-year-old Linda Carter beat them out. She didn't have many acting credits to her name at that point. She did win the Miss World USA title in 1972, and she was a part of Bob Hope's USO cast as a member. The USO is, I'm not really sure what it stands for, but it's entertainers that entertain the troops, I believe, overseas. Wayne Newton now is, I think, really into that. And Bob Hope, I don't know if he actually created the USO. Anyway, I'll have to look into that. But she was as one of the cast members of the USO, and she ended up getting the role of the new Wonder Woman. I think they even rebranded it the new original Wonder Woman or something. It's a crazy name. For those of you who are not familiar with the origin story of Wonder Woman, at least the TV show, Diana Prince lived on an island called Paradise Island with a bunch of women, the Amazons. And they were known for their strength, agility, and intelligence. And Steve Trevor, the series is set in World War II, and he was a pilot. And I don't know if there was a dogfight or something, but he ended up getting shot down over the Bermuda Triangle. And that really was fascinating to me because at the same time, I think that was airing was In Search Of. And so the Bermuda Triangle was super popular in the 70s, and I was so intrigued by In Search Of and anything paranormal and unusual. And so the fact that he gets shot down the Bermuda Triangle, I was like, oh yeah. Now, I don't know if this occurred in the original comics because I've never been a comic book geek. I've liked, Wonder Woman and the Justice League and all that cartoons as a kid, but I don't know, how that deviates necessarily from the comics. So Anyway, Steve Trevor is injured. I think Diana finds him, and I'm not really sure why, but it's decided that one of the Amazon women are going to go back to America with Steve Trevor. I'm not sure. I can't remember if they find out about the whole World War II thing, and they usually, stay out of stuff. But, Diana or someone said, hey, we got to help these people. I'm not really sure in terms of the original 70s show, how that went down, because it's been years since I watched it. I should revisit it. I have it on DVD. And so the queen, I think Hippolyta or something, I think it was played by Cloris Leachman. So she decides to have this contest amongst, all the Amazon women to see which one would go back with Steve Trevor to America. Diana wants to go, but her mom, who's the queen, says no because you're the princess. So Diana's upset, and she goes off on the other side of the island while these games are going on. And so basically, I think there's tests of strength and agility and what have you. And then the last one was the bullets and bracelets contest, where they take turns shooting at each other with guns. And if you remember, Wonder Woman has those bracelets that deflect bullets. So there's now they're all wearing masks and some kind of, I think, ID on their sleeve or what have you. And it ends up that this blonde wins the bullets and bracelets contest. So she's going to be the one that goes to America. Well, they unmask her, and here it's Diana. Here she sneaks in, wears a wig, and she wins it, against her mom's wishes. And so her mom acquiesces and says, okay, you can go and, accompany Steve Trevor to America. And so I can't tell you how much that I was impacted by her, and like I said, Bionic Woman and Nancy Drew even. In fact, I broke my arm when I was 5 years old trying to be her. Oh my God. So impressionable, so silly, so stupid. I was just completely fascinated by the whole mythos. And I have a strong warrior archetype. Of course, when you're that age, I don't think you know your archetypes really. Of course, I had this picture of me as a baby in my Zen room, and my husband and son laugh, Ron and Noah, because they're smiling, but I have like my pinky up as a fist, and kind of like, I'm sweet, but you don't want to mess with me. And sometimes we'll joke and say, oh, she's getting out the pinky. And that's a reference to my baby picture. So yeah, the warrior archetype, I think, was present even though I didn't realize it. And so, if you know anything about archetypes, anytime you watch a TV show, a movie, or you read a story or a fairy tale or whatever, and it really stirs something in you and you get really impressed by it, or feel like you embody it, or you want to mimic it, or something like that, it could very well be that there's an archetype stirring in you that is part of your pattern of personality. There's different theories about archetypal patterns. Carolyn Myss, M-Y-S-S, does great work. I love her book, Sacred Contracts, where she talks about our personal archetypal array, and she theorizes that we have at least 12 that we come into, our primary ones, and that 4 of them are common to all. The child, there's different types of child. There's like a wounded child, eternal child, divine child, magical child. I have a big magical child. The saboteur, the prostitute, and the victim. She says everyone has those 4 in common because those have to do with survival issues. And then she says the other 8 are patterns that we scripted before we incarnated with our guides or God, whatever you want to call it, to help us fulfill our soul's objective and plan this time around. And that really resonates with me for a lot of reasons, but I'm not going to do a whole podcast on archetypes, at least not now. But tarot is also full of archetypes, and that's why tarot endures, because of especially the major arcana, but also other cards in the minors, especially if artists really tap into the strength and the pattern of the minor cards and animate them. So that's why tarot, I think, intrigues so much too, and why it's so applicable and often accurate and really great for self-reflection. And so I think it really stirred up the warrior archetype in me, as well as the judge, which I have very strong as well, especially with that magic lasso of hers. But anyway, what was going on is I had a little brother, and he was still a baby, and my mom was out in the kitchen preparing his bottle, doing bottle stuff or whatever. So I went in the back bedroom, their bedroom, and I climbed the dresser. So stupid. And I got on top, and so I, feeling like I was Wonder Woman, jumped from the top of the dresser to the bed. Now, it wasn't that far. I mean, we're talking, 3 feet if that. I mean, I could have easily made it, but I chickened out in midair, and so I fell on the ground, and I ended up getting a compound fracture, 2 bones in my left arm, and yeah, it was really bad. And so she had to drop everything and take me to the hospital. And back then, they had to put you out to do casts, and they'd lie to you and say, "Oh, smell the pretty perfume," and they'd bring this black mask on your face, and it would knock you out just so they could set your arm. I re-broke that arm, by the way, when I was around 9. I was dared to do 1 arm cartwheels down a dew-covered hill in the morning, and I don't know why we were playing outside in elementary school in the morning. Maybe we did some playtime before school. But I remember I was doing the cartwheel, and I heard a loud snap, almost like a gunshot. And yes, I re-broke my left arm in those 2 spots again, and the bone almost went through the skin. Okay, so there you go, warrior archetype, right? So now you know why I really identified with her, and she was smart too. And so anyway, I was just really impressed with the whole mythos. And so Diana Prince goes back and works for Steve Trevor, and so they basically, she thwarts criminals, and she has this belt of strength. And in the TV show, the belt of strength is what helps her retain her strength once she leaves Paradise Island. Now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the comics, the Amazons could leave Paradise Island and still retain their superhuman strength, but they made it in the TV show where she had to have her belt of strength, so that's why she wears the belt. She also has the indestructible lasso of truth that can kind of subdue people and also forces them to tell the truth. And then she has, of course, the bullet-busting cuffs. Now, I associate those with tarot cards. I mean, strength, goes without saying. The strength card. The strength card is grace under pressure. And that was her. I mean, she didn't really use brute strength. I think she did some kicking and punching in the first season. But if I recall correctly, 2nd and 3rd season, that was when TV started becoming under scrutiny for violence. And I think then she kind of resorted more on maneuverability and agility by if 2 criminals were coming out at her, she would move out of the way and they would conk their heads, or she would jump real high and, they would get all tangled and knock themselves off for that. And so, she was never just a brute strength woman. I mean, she was beautiful, obviously. I mean, Lynda Carter is just one of the most gorgeous women ever, with those crystal blue eyes and her dark hair. And so she was just beautiful. But she has that air. Probably she has an archetype of some type of royalty. I don't know if it's a princess, or she's got a regality about her. So that is one of the reasons a lot of times when a role really fits and works is because the actor or actress actually has that archetype that they're playing. And that's why some actors, let's say, that always play the good guy, when they try to do the bad guy, it falls flat because they don't have the archetype. And to support that, and then there's some that always play criminals or devious people, and it's probably because they have some type of archetype that lends itself to that. Well, she obviously has this regality about her, Lynda Carter, and so there's that strength. Somebody who doesn't have to resort to brute strength or aggression to combat the vile things that she had encountered. So I considered the belt of truth. I'm sorry, not the belt of strength, the strength card, because she was very much grace under pressure. Her lasso of truth. Let me think. Truth. I consider that Ace of Swords. I wouldn't consider that justice, because justice is like a human construct, a human system where, you try to do your best and be blind about either side, but it's very imperfect, even though when you try to achieve balance. So I would consider her magic lasso actually the Ace of Swords, the belt of truth. I mean, for one thing, it's indestructible. And when you see that Ace of Swords in a tarot deck, it looks pretty formidable. It's also, a card of power. And so I would consider her magic lasso, the Ace of Swords card. Her cuffs, let's see, her bullet-busting cuffs. Well, they're defensive. So I would consider that like Seven of Wands. The Rider-Waite, it's that figure up on the hill, and there's all these people with batons below him, and he's above them with a baton, like, don't you even come on my hill. It'll beat you down. Or in our coffee deck, it shows a woman with a big can of coffee, and these zombies are coming after her, like they want her coffee, and she's got this fiery torch, like, don't you even come near me to get my coffee. So that's what I would consider her bulletproof cuffs. Yeah, Seven of Wands. Yeah, let me think of any other. Now, obviously, I'm going down nostalgia lane. And so, if you're not familiar, the nostalgia card, I feel, in tarot is Six of Cups. It shows a figure giving another figure. They look like they might be children giving flowers. And sometimes that can also be a card of small gifts or friendly chit-chat, exchanging pleasantries. But it also can be called the nostalgia card. And so, so this whole podcast for me is a big old Six of Cups, as well as the Bionic Woman and the Nancy Drew that I'm going to be doing. I'm sorry, they have to have their own podcast. And her intelligence too. Well, that could be Ace of Swords, but I consider that more the belt of truth, the lasso of truth. I keep saying belt and lasso, sorry. She has her lasso on her waist, but it's not the belt. It looks more like a wrestling prize, like WWE or something. But, the lasso of truth would be more Ace of Swords, cutting through the bullshit and getting the truth out of people. Intelligence, I'd say Queen of Swords. She has that queen energy, that nurturing, protecting, mothering truth, wanting to see truth preserved. So, and then of course swords, again, intelligence and insight and decisiveness. So I'd see her intelligence aspect as the Queen of Swords, especially the fact that truth is really important to her on the whole, which is important to the Queen of Swords, right or wrong. She is after the truth. So yeah, I would say that. In agility. Agility was also part of the Amazons. I would consider that another swords card. Seven of Swords. That Seven of Swords, I swear to God, it gets a bad rap. People act like, oh, it's the thief card. And that's all they say about it, because it looks like a guy who's carrying swords outside of a tent, and then they assume that he's stealing them. Well, I think that's bullshit, okay? So how do we know that someone didn't steal his swords and he's getting it back from him, right? I mean, that's what's interesting about tarot, is you project your own shit. Well, now the guys aren't here, I'll cuss more. No, they think it's funny. They get a kick out of it. Noah said, their cussing's good for the soul. I'm like, Noah. But, oh geez, I totally went off the rails. Now see, I don't have my guys here to keep me off the crazy train, so now I'm trying to remember what I was even talking about. Oh, for crying out loud. Too bad this isn't a two-way podcast, so you guys can't yell at me and say, hey, oh, I don't even have my sound effects button. See, I could have been doing sound effects. It's more fun to do it with Ron and Noah, though, because, I don't know, just makes it funnier. Oh, yeah. Okay, back to the Seven of Swords. I consider Seven of Swords a strategy card, and I think it's very beneficial. If you're negotiating a contract, or you're trying to go through a intellectual minefield, or you're trying to, just navigate a tricky situation, you need the Seven of Swords card, Stealth. And that's why in our coffee deck, we made that into like a video game figure where he's like jumping things, trying to get to, with coffee, he's strategic, just like when you're playing a video game, you got to know the buttons to jump and duck and do all these things. And so I consider the Seven of Swords like a strategy card, and she definitely embodies that as well. So, my goodness, I just hopefully gave Wonder Woman all her props, because she really influenced me, like I said. Her ideals, what she was about, she was influential to many of us, I think. And I think the show aired from 1975 to 1979, so it was very impressionable at that time. I was like 5 years old. So she probably influenced a lot of women who are now in their 50s and 60s. Women's right movement, and, helping encourage women that they could be anything they wanted, or at least aspire to it, right? Alrighty, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this solo outing of me on Pop Tarot Podcast, doing 1970s Wonder Woman and putting her through the spin of tarot. Again, I'm Janet Boyer, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. And, we play it loosey-goosey here. I'm not sure even what our next ones are going to be. I know I am going to do the Bionic Woman 70s show with Lindsay Wagner. That was from 1976, 1978. And then I'm going to do the Hardy Boys Nancy Drew Mysteries from 1977 and 1979. So these are just right when I was, a young girl. And so, yeah, there's going to be some more Six of Cups nostalgia podcasts. And I hope to have husband Ron and son Noah back with me soon. If you have any suggestions for podcasts and you'd like to see us do it, please let us know. We're definitely going to be doing Star Trek. We're big Star Trek fans, so who knows, that might be the next one. Well, you take care. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, please like it, share, tell people about it, and we would really appreciate that. If you want to come visit us online, we have an Etsy store that has our decks, my books. I make jewelry. I do mixed media. Noah makes hand-sewn bags. Ron has other art on there. It's Shea Boyer, CHEZBOYER.Etsy.com, or you can visit me at janetboyer.com. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.